What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Saturday edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. Thanks for checking us out on TV 14.1 in Delmarva and the good folks joining us there as I get myself ready for a Saturday afternoon. And I'll tell you, so interesting enough, right? Look what transpired over the last several days. Opening day has come and gone in baseball. I want to get into a little baseball today, talk about some win totals. I have a couple sleeper teams, but we've got the Final Four, which is set. And I know, listen, did anyone have Florida Atlantic? Did anyone have Miami in their Final Four? And it's really remarkable when you think about this, because for my money, UConn right now is playing at such a ridiculously high level. San Diego State, kind of the sleeper. So you're going to either have Florida Atlantic and or San Diego State playing for the national championship, right? Miami's going crazy down there right now. And then you've got Miami, the 5th seed, against UConn, the 4th seed. UConn has been blowing the doors off of people. UConn right now is laying 5.5. San Diego State is laying 3. I think that line's going to close around 2.5. So if you can get it lower than that, which I don't think you will, that's a great play. But I thought the tournament has been fascinating. Now, we've had this conversation over the last several weeks on BYP, where a lot of the top seeds, we didn't think they were going to have the wherewithal. We didn't think they were actually going to be able to make a run. And look what happens. You turn around and boom, Houston, Kansas, Purdue, Alabama, all out. And now you've got a 9-5, 5-4 seed. I mean, think about that for a moment. And I think it speaks to the parity in college hoops. I think it also speaks to, the Big East is still the Big East. You look at the run that Connecticut has had. It's been absolutely fantastic. I mean, they've been blowing the doors off people. Now, I don't know. Did anyone think for 1 minute that they were just, even in the Sweet 16, they blew out, what was it? Arkansas. They absolutely ran roughshod against Southern Arkansas. But if you look at what they did in the Elite Eight, I mean, they're just a really good team. Even to put up 88-65 in that win against Arkansas, it was so impressive because a lot of people thought Arkansas was going to be the team to beat. And then they turn around and what do? They absolutely blast the Zags, Gonzaga, 82-54. So UConn right now, not even playing with house money, folks. UConn right now is showing you they're the best of the 4 remaining in the Final Four in this tournament of March Madness. And then conversely enough, listen, Miami is a really good story, and Miami can smother you with defense. But again, I did not see Miami going out, and not only did they take care of business when they defeated Houston and Miller, Houston did not have the best game plan. They did not have the best night. I thought Walker didn't play as well as he typically can play. And I'm thinking of Alabama for a moment with Miller, who we'll get to him in a minute. But how about Miami blasting Houston 89-75? So now those squads meet, those two respectively, Miami and UConn in the Final Four. And then you've got Florida Atlantic, San Diego State. Florida Atlantic had a 19-20 game winning streak this year. So let's not pretend for a minute that Florida Atlantic is a fraud of a team. They're certainly not. I was just shocked at the fact that they took care of Tennessee, who I thought that game was going to be low scoring because Tennessee only gives up 57 a game. They got one of the best defenses in the country. They scored 55, and it just so happens Florida Atlantic scored 62. The shocker to me was the great win that Kansas State was coming off of, and then Florida Atlantic hangs on for the 3-point win, 79-76. So, you got Florida Atlantic. You've got San Diego State, which is a very good team that played in a tough conference as well. Let's not dispute the Aztecs and what they were able to do all season long. They had some really, really big wins. And like I said, they get rid of Alabama, which was a shocker. And then they edge Creighton. Horrible last possession by Creighton. San Diego State just played great defense down the stretch. They made some really big time clutch shots. And if you think about it, they got some big time scores as well. Whether it's Johnson, whether it's Trammell, whether it's Butler, these guys can flat out play. So I think for my money, if you're thinking about the Final Four right now, listen, this is, to me, there's parity, right? We always talk about that. There's parity in March Madness. We want the teams that have the depth, the teams that have the very good guard play. We think they're going to make a deep run into the tournament. We thought maybe it was going to be, the Alabamas or their Houston. Purdue's one dimensional, right, with their center, and then you got UCLA, deep guard play, even though they had some injuries. The Big East doesn't fare so well aside from UConn, but I'm also talking about some of these other mid-majors, some of these other conferences. They're deep and they're talented. And I think for a lot of years, we kind of dismissed them. And I don't think we should be dismissing them anymore, because when you think about the history of this tournament and the teams that always had great runs, UConn years ago with Alameda, Michigan State with the Flintstones, UCLA with Toby Bailey and Tyus Edney, the Arkansas squads, they were very deep teams, those early 90s, mid 90s, Nolan Richardson. The Duke squads always had the guard play. Even the years that Villanova won it prior to their magical run in 85, when you had three teams from the Big East, by the way, you had Villanova, Georgetown, St. John's, and Memphis. Think about that, right? So Georgetown blasts St. John's, then Johnny's, and then Villanova beats Memphis. And then, of course, Villanova upsets the Goliath in Georgetown, but they had the guards in 85, right? And they also had Presley and Jensen, and those guys were just unbelievable. And they shut down Patrick Ewing in that game, but it's all predicated upon the guard play. I like Florida Atlantic. I think they got a little juju. I think they got something cooking and something brewing. And I just think UConn right now is playing at such a high level where you don't want to get in their way. Like, I did not think UConn was this good. I really didn't. And I watched a lot of the Big East this year. I was just not entirely sold on UConn. I thought maybe they can make a nice little quiet run, maybe win a game or two, maybe Sweet 16, but it's remarkable what this team has done. It's remarkable because when you think about the coaching, when you think about the players they lost, and they still won 29 games this year, and they're just a very, very balanced team. I mean, make no bones about it. They are an exceptionally balanced team. They play both ends of the floor. They know how to play defense. Look, they held Gonzaga to 54 points. Think about that for a minute. The Zags to 54 points. If you look what their stars were able to do, Hawkins, the guard, right? Newton, the guard, Jackson Jr., the guard. They combined for 36 points, right? Not too much coming off the bench. I think Chingan, the center, gave them 6, but they were able to just neutralize Gonzaga. They were able to push the pace when they needed to push the pace. And they were also, smart basketball. And I think the teams that don't turn the ball over, it's a cliche, you make your shots, right? The tournament is just like the NBA, any league. It's a make or miss league. I mean, I see it with the TBL, the games that I broadcast in the basketball league. Got a lot of players that played overseas. You got a lot of players that played in the G League. You got a lot of players that played high level D1 college ball. And East Coast, more guard play, Midwest, West, it's more predicated on the bigs. But you'll also have these defensive alignments where you're okay. You'll settle for teams taking some outside jump shots and not allowing the guards to penetrate. It's the same thing. You look at Texas's defense, Tennessee's defense, they were exploited because you were able to actually get up and down the floor. And what happens is you're getting the double, you're drawing the triple, you're kicking it out, you're getting great spacing on the floor. And those teams were able to beat them up on the way to the Final Four. But I think it's going to be a hell of a Final Four. I really do. I think the competitiveness, there's no more of the years where, you got to be careful. You stick Carolina or Duke in this region, Kansas or Kentucky in this region. The 16 seeds can't win, 15 seeds can't win, a 9 and 8, it's basically a toss up, 12 and 5, the dangerous seed. This is what we know. Ultimately, it's a war of attrition. The regular season, you get to your 20 plus wins, you try to get that automatic win. If you don't, you try to win your conference tournament. But seedings right now, you can argue this tournament mean absolutely nothing. I mean, just think about that for a minute. Where's Purdue? Where's Alabama? Where is Houston? Where is Kansas? Where is Kentucky? Where is Duke? Where are these teams? Where are these teams? They're all at home. Where's Gonzaga? Where's Creighton? They're all at home. They're going to be watching Saturday and then Monday's championship game, just like we are. So I think right now, unofficially on the record, off the record, I do like San Diego State to advance. I think Florida Atlantic, hell of a season, great story. And UConn's going to be too much with their guards and their defense against Miami. And I think you're going to see San Diego State and UConn play for the national championship. I'll give you my thoughts and predictions on Monday edition of BYP. But as always, we appreciate you keeping us locked into this week's edition of BYP, exclusively on TV 14.1 in Delmarva. Appreciate everyone from the first state. Don't forget, you can always tweet at me at Rich Q on Q, hashtag BYP. We've had such a busy schedule, boxing over the last several weeks, TBL, ABA stuff. I mean, we've been all over the place, but we're so happy to be kind of back in the saddle and get you regrouped. We got our regular guests coming on as well. We're going to get that up and running. Lloyd Vance, Nick Costco, Steve Gardner. We got to talk some baseball, which we'll get into a little bit on the other side. And I want to mix in some NFL too, because the draft's right around the corner. We'll kind of go through the NFC East, and now the report that Daniel Snyder is putting the Commanders up for sale. So that should be interesting, especially for the fans around the Beltway and 95. But we are halfway home through this edition of a BYP Back Your Play with Q. Rich Quinones here. As always, hit me up on Twitter at Rich Q on Q, at IG at Rich Q on Q. The YouTube channel, same thing, Rich Q on Q. You guys have been fantastic with the subscriptions and the dialogue and the comments and the sharing the videos. And we totally appreciate it. You guys have been awesome. Johnny on the spot with that as well. So what we'll do is we'll take a quick time out. We'll reset the table, get in a little baseball. Opening day has come and gone. And hey, I mean, listen, we're already creeping into April, are we not? But we'll get into that. We'll also dive into some NFL news and notes. As I mentioned, you guys can hit me up on Facebook, on Twitter, on IG at RichQ and hashtag BYP. Any thoughts, questions, any plays that you guys have you want me to check out? I love giving you a little advice. And as we always talk about, it's money management with the units. Be smart. Don't gamble. Don't bet what you don't have, especially for baseball season. You know, what I like to do is play the win total, and then I'll pick some series here and there. And then, of course, in the playoffs, it's a different animal. But I'll give you my thoughts on AL MVP, NL MVP as well. How about Judge opening day? Already what a blast for the Bronx Bombers and the Yanks. So we'll touch base on that. We'll come back on the other side. Keep it locked in. This week's edition of BYP right here on TV 14.1 in Delmarva.